All right. Thank you. Welcome, church. I just want to say thank you again. Last Sunday's Adopt a Family Christmas party was incredible. There's so many great stories in the making, and so many of you gave so much just out of a heart of compassion to love on people, and so many great blessings are going to come from our Christmas party this year. So would you keep praying for those families and praying for that ministry? Such a great thing. We do have Chris and Emily Vicchio back with us from Tanzania. So make sure they're here for about 3 months on missionary furlough, and so make sure you get to know them and speak with them and encourage them. And they're like here for 3 months just to respite and reacquainted with some family members in the church, and just get to know them and bless them, encourage them all you can. I have a special treat for you today. My son Micah will be preaching. Yeah. I'm excited about it. My birthday was yesterday. I'm like, Micah, that's my birthday present. You preaching. But he called me a couple weeks ago, and he says, Dad, I've been fantasizing a lot about preaching. Can I preach when I come home for Christmas? Yes. So would you just help me give a warm welcome to Micah as he comes and preaches the word.
So I'm back for winter break, and it's so awesome. I am halfway done with junior year in college. I don't know how in the world that happened, but it did. And I really just want to start off this morning by thanking you guys. Just hearing about the Christmas service that you guys had for those kids and those families. I wish I was there to see those faces, those smiles, and those presents. I love when the stage is just filled with presents. That gets me excited. Am I doing too much here? Oh, well. Also, you guys don't understand how much you do for the interns that come here for the crossing. I get to live close quarters with a lot of them in the same dorm as they go to the same school with Johnson, and you guys blow them away, and you blow me away by just taking care of my friends and loving on them and taking care of me. And so just thank you. I give yourself a round of applause because, church, you guys do such a great job loving people. And like Dad said, I called him a few weeks ago, and I was like, hey, I would just love to preach. But I think there was a little bit of a miscommunication, because when Dad said the sermon series was the reincarnation, I was a little bit confused. So I put all my time and energy planning a sermon about the reincarnation, and I'm just now figuring out it's the incarnation. So today might be a long one. But no, the incarnation. If you weren't following along, that was a joke. Okay, sweet, but you got it. The incarnation, God becoming man. I love how Adam described it last week. God with skin on. I think that's genius. And one of the things that we've been learning in my school here recently was just the idea of creation. How it happened. Jesus is in full control. How he did everything. And it made me wonder, the incarnation, why would he ever want to do that? He's up there, a full control, has a seat on the throne, and he comes to the world. And Christmas time is really when we get to dive into the idea of the incarnation, and that's why I love Christmas. We get to understand who Jesus is. And there was a man leaving church Christmas a few years ago, and as he was walking out, the pastor said, Jim, dude, it is time for you to join the army of the Lord, man. I want to see you here every Sunday. And Jim was kind of taken back, and he's like, I am in the army of the Lord, Pastor. I'm in the Lord's army. And the pastor kind of chuckled and was like, Jim, then why do I only see you here on Christmas and Easter? You can't be in the Lord's army if you're only here on Christmas and Easter. And Jim kind of looked, I don't know, took back, and he looked to the left, and he looked to the right, and he leaned over to the pastor and said, I'm in the Secret Service. So, whether you are in the Secret Service today, and you're just here for Christmas, or you come here every Sunday, the part of the Bible we're going to look into today is amazing, because it's just going to take us to Jesus, show us who he is, and just leave us like, wow. And I love the Bible because it does that. So when God becomes man, Jesus, when God becomes man, you would expect some pretty godly things, right? But when God comes down to this earth, you would expect him to be pretty powerful. And today, we're going to look in the life of Jesus and see his godliness through his miracles. And I want you to know, before we get started, it's Christmas time. And I want you to know that the birth of Jesus is a real thing. Luke chapter 2 tells us that it's a real thing. It happened on a real day. It's in a real event. In church, it brings real hope. And so if the birth of Jesus is true, which it is, the life of Jesus is also true. And today, I want to look into a chapter of the Bible that just highlights one day of Jesus' life. Just one day that just leaves me like, wow. So 2 weeks ago, Dad started the sermon series, and hopefully you can remember 2 weeks ago. He said that every promise of God is a yes in Jesus. Can I hear you say yes? Dude, Jesus brings us the promise of God, yes. Last week, Adam told us that we have forgiveness. And what an indescribable gift that we have forgiveness, and we can rejoice in it, and we can receive it, and I love those. And like I said, today we're going to look into one day of Jesus, and it's going to be kind of fast-paced. All right, so I hope you brought your big boy pants on today, because we're going to be flying through Luke chapter 8. I hope you brought your Bibles. It's not going to be on the screen, because we're going to go through a lot, and we're gonna highlight some things that happened in Jesus' life. So let's dive in. Luke chapter 8, we're going to be starting in, verse 22. One day he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they set out. And as they sailed, he fell asleep. And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water, and they're in danger. They went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased. And there was a calm. And he said to them, "Where is your faith?" And they were afraid, and they marveled, saying to one another, "Who then is this, that he commands even winds and water to obey him?" That's awesome. That leaves me like, wow. So here's Jesus. Him and his disciples are, the beginning of their day, they're getting in a boat. They get in a boat, and they're sailing. And Jesus, it's nap time. I understand that. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing. Every Sunday we call it the holy nap at the Magee house. And Jesus was having his holy nap at the bottom of the boat. And he's resting, and the disciples come, and because there's a storm on them. There's a big storm on them, and their boat's filling with water. And they say, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And with a word, Jesus calms the wind and the waves. And the first thing I think we need to understand about this is a big storm. It can be kind of easy just to read over some stuff, but this is a big storm. And we understand that at least 4 of the 12 disciples are fishermen. Okay, this is what they do for a living. They're on the water. They understand how to deal with tough situations. And so for them to not even know what to do, for them to be in danger, this is a big storm. Because they knew what to do when things got rough. But here, the storm had overpowered them, and they were going to die. So here we are, and the first thing that I see about Jesus, it kind of just shows that he is human. God is man. Jesus is resting. I think that's pretty cool. He's at the bottom of the boat. He's probably been with some great crowds preaching, and he's probably needed a break from the crowds, and probably needed a break from the disciples, those knuckleheads. And he's down there resting, and I know exactly what that feels like. I'm coming back from a really, really, really long semester at college. Not that it was bad, but it was long. And I need some rest. And here's Jesus, human Jesus, resting. And I think that's really important for us just to acknowledge that Jesus was human. He needed rest. And although he was human, although he needed rest, the second thing that this text shows us is that Jesus is fully God. Because with one word, he can calm the storms and the waves. Whew. The disciples step back and just marvel at this. Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. Whew. Wow. That's awesome. So I think that this first part of the text shows us that Jesus has power over nature. Jesus has power over the natural. And I think that's so awesome. It shows us Jesus is a miracle worker because can anyone else here control the weather at all? If you are, please make it stop raining. I just come back from college. I want a little bit of sunshine. And I appreciate it if you did, but we can't. But Jesus has full control over nature. And like I said, we're going to fly through. So that's just the first part of Jesus' day. The second part, starting with verse 26. As soon as that's done, here we go. Then they sailed to the country of Gerasenes, which is opposite of Galilee. When Jesus had stepped out on land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. From a long time he had worn no clothes, and he had not lived in a house but among the tombs. Oof. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirits to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He had kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to command them or to depart them into the abyss. Excuse me. Now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let them enter into these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered into the pigs, and the herd rushed down into the steep, into the lake, and were drowned. Okay, so here's Jesus, right? He's asleep on the boat. A huge storm comes. Jesus, he's waking up with a word calms the storm. And here's the disciples freaking out. Okay, who is this guy? We've been with him for a while, but he can control nature. As soon as he steps out, there is a demon-possessed man. And the text doesn't just say it's a demon, it's a demons-possessed man, for he had many. Steps out and meets Jesus. And through this encounter, Jesus heals him. Takes away his demons. That's incredible. So these verses, the human Jesus, we see that he's compassionate. We see that Jesus is compassionate, and I love that. Here's what blows my mind. So Jesus gets into the boat, goes to this place, and then right after that happens, Legion, or the man with many demons, asks to come with him, and Jesus gets right back into the boat. So maybe, just maybe, Jesus went to get rest, sailed all the way across the sea just to heal this man. Jesus had compassion on him. A man filled with demons, a man who's scary to society, a man who's dangerous to society. Jesus had compassion. But the same Jesus who has compassion even on us today is feared even by demons. I just love that. And this is God, the incarnation, Jesus, God Jesus, it's shining through him. Because man really doesn't have any power over demons. And especially this man, he was controlled by his demons. And that's a little scary. But here's Jesus having full control over the demons. In this text, it says that Jesus has power of the spiritual. In one day, we've already seen that Jesus has power over the natural. He has power over the storm. And he has power over the spiritual. Over demons. And don't worry, it continues. I feel like an infomercial. But wait, there's more. And continuing into the story, Jesus gets back into the boat and he sails back. And when he gets there, listen to what happens. Verse 40. Now when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was the ruler of the synagogue. And falling at Jesus' feet, he implored to him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years old, and she was dying. As Jesus went, the people pressed around him, and there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all of her living on physicians, she went up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowds are surrounding you and pressing on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, falling down before him, and declaring the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had immediately been healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." And while he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Don't trouble the teacher anymore." But Jesus, on hearing this, said, "Do not fear, only believe, for she will be well." And when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him except Peter, John, and James, and the father of the mother and child. And all who were weeping, mourning for her. All who were weeping and mourning for her. But he said, "Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, "Child, arise." And her spirit returned, and she got up at once. And he directed that she had something to eat. Amen. And her parents were amazed, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened. This is one day in Jesus' life. We see that he has power over the natural. He calms the storm. He has power over the spiritual. He commands demons to do what he pleases. And now we see that Jesus has full control over sickness and death. Human Jesus here, this is awesome because human Jesus here is so considerate. Is anyone a work-oriented person? You know, they do well when they have something to do, and whatever that task is, they're doing it. Okay? No one's stopping me, just poof, straight on. Here's Jesus. He's on a mission, right? He's following Jairus, this guy. And I don't think Jesus was necessarily task-oriented, and I think I need to learn from that. He's on his way on a mission, and he stops. And although it was the lady who reached out to him, Jesus put his mission aside to deal with her. Not to deal with her, but to be with her. And Jesus in this story has his compassion. Human Jesus has compassion. But God Jesus, the same man, but the same God, he shows his miracle twice here. He proves that he has power over sickness. That's awesome. And this sickness wasn't just like, okay, here comes the seasonal allergy. You know, this isn't just a runny nose or cough or a flu or even pneumonia. This woman was dying. The text tells us that she was struggling with the discharge of blood for 12 years. And it wasn't just a coincidence that she was healed on this day. It wasn't just a coincidence, all right, 12 years is up, I'm healed. No, she had spent all of her money, all of her living, going to physicians and doctors and trying to find people that will help her, and no one could. And I think it's so cool because Jesus even makes his clothes powerful. How cool is that? Just the touch of his cloak, and she's healed. That's so awesome. And we can see, continuing the story, that Jesus, he even has power over death. People laughed at him. She's dead. Don't worry about it. But Jesus says, "Arise, child," and she did. And I think it's kind of scary because death is the one thing that every single person here has in common. Death is the one unavoidable thing of humanity. And Jesus, our King, the one we celebrate at Christmas, has power over that. So in one day of Jesus' life, we see that he has power over the natural. He has power over nature. Miracle. He has power over the supernatural, the spiritual. Miracle. And he has power over the physical. I know a lot of people ask, hey, if you could go back in time to any time, just one day back in time, what would it be? A lot of people say, oh, the creation would be awesome. Or Noah's Ark, or all the things in history. This one kind of gives me a run for its money, because if I could see Jesus in one day do what he does best, Luke chapter 8. So that's what this text tells us. Flat out, he's in charge of those things. He's in charge of the natural, calming the storm. In charge of the spiritual, controlling demons, and he's in charge of sickness and death. So where does that leave us today? It's Christmas time, 2018. Where in the world does Luke chapter 8 leave us today? Well, I love it because Christmas time, like I said earlier, is all about the celebration of the incarnation. Jesus, God, the man on the throne, came down to be human. God with skin on. We're celebrating that, and I love that. And this text is awesome because it's telling us that we're celebrating a man. We're celebrating God who's in control of the natural, the spiritual, and the physical. So bottom line, this text tells us whether you like it or not, he's in control. Whether you're here and maybe you're in the Secret Service or maybe you are or have been here for forever, whether you like it or not, Jesus is in control. That's what this text tells us, and I love that. And I would love to close today just figuring out what we can do because of this passage. Luke chapter 8 is powerful, but I would love to walk through this, rewind, go through it, and see what we can learn today. Because the fact is, when you walk out of those doors and you go on your day, which, by the way, today's an amazing day because it's Dawn Bell's birthday. So if you see her, oh yeah, we love Dawn. We love Dawn. But whether you walk out and on your day, Luke 8 tells us that Jesus is in control. And the first thing it tells us is Jesus is in control of our storms. And we have storms today. Can I get an amen on that? Because, oh my goodness. In fact, life here in this place in 2018, I think, can be some of the most messed up places ever. You know, it's so messed up that I sometimes forget what calmness looks like. I forget what it looks like when Jesus comes and what the word calms the storm. Because 2018 is messy. Jobs are being lost. Family members are passing away. Cancer is being diagnosed. Cars are being crashed. Money's being stolen. Money's being lost. Tests have failed. Loves are forgotten. Guys, I can go on and on with that stuff because it's hard today. But church, I want you to understand that if you go to the bottom of the boat, and if you wake up Jesus, he is in control of the storm, of your storm. And I'm not saying that he's in a physical boat, and I'm not saying that you're even in a boat, but I'm saying that Jesus is ready. And maybe not, it's not a physical storm like it is outside, but maybe your life is in chaos. And just like the disciples, all you have to do is go and get Jesus because he's ready. And this text already says that he has power over it, over any situation. But here's what is hard for me and some of us. The reason we don't get Jesus is because we like control. It's because I like control. Maybe I am task-oriented, and if I'm in charge and if I'm doing it, nothing's going to go wrong. But Jesus says, ye of little faith. You've seen that I'm in control. You've seen I can literally calm a physical storm. Why don't you trust me? And I think it's funny how the disciples, you know, they were fishermen, they knew what to do, but they waited last resort for Jesus. Why? And I think it's important to learn from the mistakes of the Bible that we don't have to wait last resort for Jesus, guys. He's there, he's ready, and he's in control. The miracle worker that this season's all about is Jesus, and he's ready for us. And here's where a lot of people kind of go wrong or get mixed up in this thing. People say that if Jesus is really in control, then why did my dad die so early? If Jesus is really in control, why is this Christmas so hard for me? Because I can't even get presents for my family. If Jesus is really in control, why did I lose my job? Or why did I get cancer? And those questions are easy to ask. But church, look at the text. Did Jesus want that man to be filled with demons? No. Did Jesus want that woman to be hurting and bleeding and dying for 12 years? No. Did Jesus want that little girl to die? No. Did he make those things happen? No. Long story short, those things happened and things happen today because sin has forever messed up this world. And if we ever put that blame on Jesus, I don't even want to go there. But it's not Jesus. And it's not Jesus putting in those storms. And it's not Jesus putting those storms in our life sometimes. And I don't even know what your storm is, but I do know who's in control of the storm. And when we go to him, we know that. We understand that he's in control of our storms. So just from this text, we see that Jesus is in control of our storms. And the next point, it's kind of scary, is that Jesus has authority over our demons. Ooh. What does that mean? Well, gospel stories of demon possession are difficult to preach. Typically because we don't really experience demon possession in America. So it's hard for us to relate any of that. However, John Piper, a great preacher, he found that all the demons, or really the demons that Jesus confronts in his life, have three things in common. One, they cause self-destructive behavior in the victim. The victim feels trapped in that condition, and they separate the victim from normal living in the family. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I don't want to say that anyone is demon-possessed today, and I don't want to say that anyone even compares to Legion, but guys, those three things are the demon possession in America. Self-destruction behavior to the victim, feeling trapped in that condition, and the separation of the family. Whew. Guys, the church isn't perfect. That's an absolute fact. And let me tell you something, even your preacher isn't that perfect. Can I get an amen on that one? But, sorry about that, Dad. Whatever secret or dark thing we hold, whatever demon we have that's causing us harm to ourselves, that's making us feel trapped, that's bringing us separation from the family, guys, Jesus has authority over that. And maybe it's something pretty serious that you need professional help on. And I don't think anyone should be above getting help. But guys, there are demons in America, and those same demons are feared. They fear Jesus. And I love that. And those are three things that I never want to have to handle by myself. Legion, this man who's controlled by his demons, could do nothing. Chains couldn't bind him. People couldn't guard him. There was nothing anyone could do to hold this man down but Jesus. Jesus healed him. And I think that's for us today. We have some things, maybe it's mental, maybe it's physical, maybe it's spiritual, demons that are holding us back. But guys, Jesus has authority over those demons. Also, we've seen that Jesus has power over our storms today, 2018. He has power over our demons. And Jesus has power over our sickness. And sickness is pretty prevalent in today. And it's a really big deal whether it's a family member being diagnosed with cancer. Maybe it's a suppression that you have a physical disability. And I hate that. And some of these things can be a really scary thing. But this passage is so beautiful because it tells us that Jesus has the power to heal. Jesus has the power to heal. And I'm not saying he's going to heal you every time. The Bible doesn't say, ask Jesus and you'll be healed every time. The Bible tells us that if we go to God as children of God, according to his will, and ask things that are according to his will, he will give it to us. And I love that. And we know he will grant it because Jesus doesn't just have the power over sickness, guys. He has power over death. He showed that here. He raised someone else from the dead and later on raises himself from the dead. So here we are, 2018, reading Luke chapter 8. And I just want to give you two takeaways as we leave. I appreciate you listening to me and being over enthusiastic about a chapter of the Bible, but guys, this is powerful. It tells us that Jesus he's in control. And I think the first takeaway for us is to acknowledge he's in control. Whether you like it or not, Jesus has full control. And I love that. And whether you are a part of the Secret Service and you're just here for the first time in a long time, welcome. And I hope that you acknowledge today as you walk out those doors that Jesus is in control over the natural, spiritual, and physical. And I know this message doesn't really have the Christmas wrapping that we would like. You know, it's not little baby Jesus in a manger, which it's beautiful. But this text shows us the true Jesus that we celebrate for Christmas. This text tells us that we celebrate a man who came from heaven, the incarnation, who has full control. And guys, Christmas can get pretty hectic, can't it? I don't know about, I live a great life, but at Christmas time is just filled with, I got to be here. I got to be there. We got to make this person happy. Do I get presents for this person? Am I going to be there on time? Did I burn the turkey? Did I burn the whatever? Ooh, it's stressful. And the Christmas season is all about the one that loves us way more than Santa Claus, Jesus, and the one who has full control. So our first takeaway is acknowledge that Jesus has full control. I love that. The second one is, although he has full control over anything we can come encounter, he wants to help us. He wants to help us. You know, I was thinking earlier, why in the world would God give up that for this? For this? I don't know. But this text tells us that he did because he wants to help us. In each of these stories, God, with skin on, wanted to help these people. And when the people in the Bible put their faith in God, good always comes out every single time. If you look in the Old Testament, every time the Israelites turned away from God, it crashed, bad. But every time they put their faith in God, blessings and goodness. And I love that. And it's the same for us today. And just like Dad told us 2 weeks ago, the promises we have in the Bible are yes in Jesus. So the second takeaway is, understand that he wants to help us, but there's a two-way part there. He's coming to us, but we have to seek him. And guys, there's no better opportunity than Christmas. We're getting together with a church family, with our families, to understand what Jesus did over 2,000 years ago was true. It's real. And I can't think of a better Christmas present than Jesus. Because he's in full control, and he wants to help us. Amen? Amen. Let's pray. Dear Jesus, we love you. And we are so thankful that you are in control. Lord, walking today through Luke chapter 8, it just amazes me and leaves me just, wow. You can calm the storm with the word. You can command demons. And you have full control over sickness and death. Lord, help us to acknowledge that today. Help us to go out and not just acknowledge that, but to seek you this season. And Lord, because all of the promises that you give us are yes in your Son, and that we have forgiveness, that we can rejoice in that, and today we understand that you have full control. Let this season be filled with thanksgiving and love for you, and let's acknowledge you in everything we do. In your I pray. Amen.